Yeah, so there is matrix multiplication, matrix subtraction, and then there's also matrix multiplication, right? Let's quickly go over these concepts. So matrix addition and subtraction is very, very straightforward. There's really nothing to think about here. So if you have two matrices and they're asking you to add or subtract, all you need to do is find the corresponding numbers, right? The matching numbers. Here they're asking you to subtract, so you do 10 minus minus 9. And then you do negative 13 minus minus 17. So 10 minus 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 19. You can actually stop there. The answer is K, because none of the other answer choices has a 19 for the first number. But let's just be a little bit more thorough. Negative 13 minus minus 17, that would be plus 17, that's 4, exactly. Negative 8 minus minus 8, that's negative 8 plus 8, that's 0. 11 minus 14, that's negative 3, exactly. And it's the same thing for plus, right? So if this were a plus instead of a minus, then you would have 10 plus negative 9, that's 1, that is the first number. Then you would have, so it looks like this is, if it were a plus symbol, H would be the correct answer. Negative 13 plus 17, that would be 4. No, plus negative 17, that would be negative 30, right? And then negative 8 plus negative 8 would be negative 16. 11 plus 14 would be 25, exactly, right? Subtraction, addition, it is exactly as simple as you think it's going to be. And definitely, like, in math, a lot of the times this is the case. A lot of the times it is exactly as simple as you think it's going to be. The multiplication is a little bit more complicated, right? Yeah, so there's one type of multiplication that's quite simple. So if you have, like, let's say you have a matrix, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's keep the numbers very, very simple. And then you have a normal number on the outside, like 5. In this scenario, this is very similar to, like, distribution. This just means multiply all four numbers by 5. Yeah, so this would be equal to 5, 10, 15, 20, right? The hard one is the matrix multiplication. Let's just keep that on the screen for a little bit longer, right? So this is very, very simple. You have a matrix, you have a number, they want you to multiply one number to a matrix. Well, that means just multiply all the numbers inside the matrix by that number. Pretty straightforward. The complex one is when you multiply two matrices together. Let's see if there's an example of that. And a lot of times they'll just tell you how to do it. Yeah, definitely. A lot of the times in the ACT, if they ask you to do something hard, they'll just literally give you the instructions, which is very, very nice. Let's see if I can find an example. Sometimes they don't give the instructions. I don't know. It's hard for me to tell why they choose to give you instructions sometimes and why they don't choose to give you instructions sometimes. Okay, here's kind of like a harder one. So this is a concept that I actually have not seen until the 2014-2015 test. So there is this concept called the determinant. And what is the determinant? If you take a determinant of a matrix, well, they tell you. So what you do is you multiply the diagonally, A times D, and then you also multiply diagonally the other way, but except you subtract the second one. Yeah, so it's AD minus C times B. So here they ask, what must be the value x for this matrix, x, and 8, to have a determinant of negative 16? So they're saying, so if we take the determinant here, we start by multiplying diagonally, so we have an x squared. And then we also multiply diagonally the other way, but then we have to subtract. So we have minus 8x. And so this is the determinant. They also tell us that the determinant is negative 16, right? Yeah, so here, yes, matrices are hard, but in this particular question, they literally tell you what to do, right? Yeah, definitely it's easy to get overwhelmed. Like, your job as a student who wants to do well in the ACT is don't get overwhelmed. Just follow the instructions, do what they tell you to do, and once you get to this step, then this is a normal parabola, right? You've seen this type of question 100 times. Can I factor this? Probably. Yeah, we're done. X equals 4. That was easy. Yeah, so here, this one is factorable. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. Negative 4x plus negative 4x is negative 8x. Why did we factor? Well, hopefully you can tell very simply, if x is equal to 4, 4 minus 4 is 0, 0 squared is 0. That's why we factor, right? Definitely you can use the quadratic formula, use your calculator, do whatever you need to. Some of you probably have like a program to solve quadratic situations, right? Yeah, if you don't know the quadratic formula, I'd definitely write this one down. It's the opposite of b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And this one is like, yeah, right? Guess whether or not they want you to know this equation for the ACT. They definitely want you to know it, right? Like it's one of the most important equations in math. Let's see if I can find matrix multiplication though. find a question, I can just like tell you what it's like. Okay, here we go. So here we have this question 60 from the 2019 test. They ask you to multiply these two matrices, and multiplying matrices is actually hard. Let me show you the pattern, right? Actually, this one, if you just know the pattern, this one becomes pretty straightforward. So the pattern is when you multiply matrices together, so this is how I think about it. You go across on the first matrice, and then you go down in the second matrice. So here the first number is going to be 2 times A plus 4 times C. 2 times A plus 4 times C. The correct answer is actually K. This is actually the definition of matrix multiplication. So the first number you go across and then down. For the second number you go across again, but then down on the second column. So the second one becomes 2 times B plus 4 times D. The bottom corner, you go across this way and then down this way, right? So this time you get 6A plus 5C. And then for the last one, you go across on the bottom and then down the right side to get 6B plus 5D. This is like, basically this question 60 is like, do you know the definition of matrix multiplication or not? Yeah, so here answer K is the definition of the matrix multiplication, right? So if you have like, yeah, I think this is like the perfect example. You just want to write this one down. You have 2, 4, 6, 5, and then you have A, B, C, D. So you go across, you go down. So the first number is 2A plus 4C. Second number, you go across and then down. So you get 2B plus 4D. And then you go across this way and then down this way for 6A plus 5C. And then you go across this way and you go down this way and get 6B plus 5D. And you know, like, you know, a lot of kids here will say like, oh, this is the most useless stuff I've ever seen, but you know, that's just supremely ignorant. This is, you know, matrix mathematics. This stuff is kind of like the foundation for like group theory and number theory. Yeah, these are the mathematical techniques that are used in like server management, like computer programming, CPU architecture. Like, you couldn't be more wrong. These skills are the foundational skills for the most valuable stuff on the planet, right? Yeah, like server space, yeah, CPU lithography, this type of stuff. Yeah. Don't be ignorant. Don't be ignorant. Yeah. Yeah, that's like somebody saying like, somebody that doesn't know how to drive a car is saying like, oh wow, cars are so useless. It's just, well, if you can't drive a car, obviously a car is useless to you. But like, if you learn how to drive a car, it is phenomenally useful. It's very similar with math. Yeah, definitely, you know. It makes me sad when kids say stuff like that. Like, oh, it's so useless, we'll never use it in real life. Well, here's the thing, right? The type of kids that say that, you know, we're never going to use this stuff in real life. I don't understand why they teach it. Well, the thing is, why do you think people never ask you to do math? Well, that kid, the reason why nobody ever asks him to do math is because he got a C in Algebra 1, right? If you get a C in Algebra 1, no one's ever going to ask you to do math. Everybody knows that you can't do any math. Like, why would I ask somebody that doesn't know how to do math to do any math at all? And like, you know, if you want to work at a Starbucks, obviously you don't need any math, right? But like, if you can do math, like you're really good at math, like you go to college, you take calculus 1 through 3, linear algebra, group theory, all that stuff, you get a master's degree in it. Now people are willing to pay you hundreds of thousands of dollars to do math every day, right? It's this type of situation. Yeah, just children say such awful things sometimes. And it's just pure ignorance, pure ignorance. It's fine, it's fine. Children also say great things sometimes. Let's just, yeah, so that's matrices. Like, yeah, definitely, it's good to know. Are you guaranteed to see a matrix problem? And that's why, definitely the math section, it's hard to teach for sure because there's such a huge variety of techniques. Really, you just want to work on your fundamentals. Yeah, be quick with your arithmetic, be good with the calculator, work backwards on the answers, but definitely, there are lots of scenarios. Like, here's another great example, right? This one is just one that you gotta know. Here we have an ellipse. So let's go over these, right? So let's start with a circle. So definitely want to know the circle equation. This comes up all the time. This is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. If this is actually, if you think about it, this is just the Pythagorean theorem, and I'll try to visualize that for you. So we have x minus h squared, y minus k squared equals r squared. This one's basically guaranteed to show up on any ACT that you take. H comma k is the center, r is the radius. And I told you a moment ago that this is basically just the Pythagorean theorem, and it's just true. So let's see. So let me show you what I mean, right? So let's say you have a center at hk, right? H comma k, some point on the graph. It doesn't matter what it is. And then you have a circle with some radius r, right? So hopefully you realize if there's some point on the circle, this is going to be on the graph. Let's just call it xy, right? Let's literally call it xy. So here, hopefully you can imagine, I can draw a right triangle here, right? I can draw a right triangle that goes from the radius to one of the points of the circle. Obviously the hypotenuse is the radius. Let's think about this portion of the right triangle here. What is this distance? Yeah, hopefully you can imagine very clearly the height of this right triangle is exactly y minus k, right? Yeah, so if you take this number y and you take this number k, you subtract them, you get exactly this length, right? And then it's the same for x. If you have some number x over here, some number h at the center, well, this is definitely going to be x minus h. And then immediately you can plug this into the Pythagorean theorem, right? Yeah, so x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Like, definitely, it just all fits so nicely together. It's just perfect. It's beautiful. Like, this is the type of stuff where, like, once you start seeing it, you just start feeling like, wow, the universe was made in such a beautiful way. And honestly, that's why people like math. If you become really good at math, like that type of moment is kind of like what you live for. You're doing some really difficult math. You're spending months and months on it, and the answer ends up being 2, or like everything lines up. Suddenly, that stuff that was discovered like 3,000 years ago, you can use it in to describe, I don't know, gravity. It's incredible. It feels like God is speaking through your hands. But here we have the ellipse. Ellipse is pretty similar. Yeah, so here the ellipse, so it's like an elongated circle, right? So there's the minor axis and the major axis. So here, yeah, so this is 4, this is 7, right? So here, let me try to remember this properly. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be x minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. And I'm trying to remember, in this scenario, is a going to be 4 or is a going to be 8? I think it's going to be 4. So I think the answer here, and definitely there's a lot of equations to remember, right? And stuff like the ellipse, how many times do I see an ellipse, right? Not super often, but I know it's something like this, even though I don't remember it exactly, and definitely even for me, this is a pretty common situation in math tests, right? I kind of remember it, but I'm not exactly sure. So I'm just going to test it, right? So the thing is, like, the reason why I don't bother too much time memorizing everything is because I can just figure it out for myself, you know? So here, I took a guess. I don't remember if A is 4 or if A is 8. I don't remember if B is, do I need to use the kind of the radius, or do I need to use the diameter? It's probably the radius, right? Because the circle equation is the radius. But I'm not 100% sure. So let's just test it, right? Let's see what happens if I plug in 4. So obviously, if this is the correct answer, if I plug in 4 for x, 0 for y, I should get 1, right? Well, it definitely works. If 4 squared is 16, 16 divided by 16 is 1, and then this one's going to be 0, right? And then y also works. If I plug in 7 here, I get 49 over 49 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 1. Okay, well, now I'm very confident. Okay, so I wasn't 100% sure, but I checked it. This ends up being the correct answer. Yeah, so here, it looks very similar to the circle equation, except instead of the r squared, we just have 1, and then the x's, we're dividing them by the horizontal axis, basically the horizontal radius of the ellipse, and then for b, with the y's, we're dividing it by this length over here. And then, so here, this one, the center is at 0, 0. That's why I can just, x minus 0 squared is definitely just x squared. Y minus 0, well, y minus 0 is just y minus 0 squared is just y squared. Yeah, so definitely know the circle equation. Yeah, this is another one where if you know it, there's probably like a, I would say 1 out of 5 ACTs will ask you to do this, but this is another great example of like, if you know it, it's like immediate. You can just circle C and move on in 10 seconds. If you don't know it, it becomes very, very difficult for sure. Yeah, I guess one thing that you can do is like start plugging in the numbers into the equations to see if it works. That's actually a really fantastic way to solve this problem, right? So even if you don't remember anything about the equation, definitely one thing that you should always be looking to do is work backwards from the answer, right? And this becomes so simple. Like, yeah, and honestly, at the end of the day, really for most students, this is the key. Don't give up. Like I would say for question 59, right? Like if you have like 1,000 students take the ACT test, how many kids are even going to read question 59, right? I would guess like maybe of the 1,000 kids that take the ACT, I would say maybe like half of them will get to question 59. And then, you know, even if like 700 kids get to question 59, I would guess like hundreds of them are just like not even gonna try. They're just gonna like randomly guess. But here, if you have like 30 seconds or a minute to solve the problem, right, you can technically like try plugging in the numbers, right? So you try A. So here, let's plug in 4, 0, right? So you do 4 squared divided by 4. And then here, hopefully, like, I mean, you can do 0 squared divided by 7, but hopefully you realize, like, I don't need to do that because 0 squared is 0. This is not it. Yeah, I'm looking for 1. I'm getting a 4. Yeah, we're going to have a similar situation in B. I mean, I'll show it to you. So this one's going to be 2, right? Oh, this on-screen calculator is such a pain. Yeah, this is not it either. C definitely does work. I'll show it to you one more time, right? So, I mean, and then once you see it a second time, hopefully, like, it's just so painfully obvious, right? Like, 4 squared divided by 16, obviously that's 1. Like, what do you mean? Why am I even doing this, right? It's just... Okay, yes, it's 1. But, and the other ones also don't work. So here, 4 minus 4 would be 0. 0 minus 7 would be negative 7. Negative 7 squared is 49, right? 49 is absolutely not equal to 1. And then here I would get 8 squared, that's 64. And then I get 7 squared, that's 49. 64 plus 49, that's going to be like 113. Like, all you need to do is plug in any of the 4 numbers into the equations. It just becomes immediately obvious that C is the only possible solution. And like, this is question 59, right? One of the last 2 questions in the ACT. This is supposed to be one of the hardest questions in the test. It's like absolutely free if you like just use your calculator and work backwards from the answers, right? Even the hardest questions in the ACT, for the vast majority of them, if you just stay calm, read the question carefully, just work backwards from the answers, plug in some numbers into your calculator, you can immediately isolate the correct answer. I think, yeah, this is a phenomenal example. And honestly, like, that's how you want to practice the ACT, right? So, like, absolutely make sure that you can solve this problem using your calculator. Make sure you're quick with the calculator, right? I just can't emphasize this enough. Like, definitely, you know, I've noticed a couple things while working with kids over the last 5 years on standardized testing. So one thing that's really, really great about the kids lately, yeah, so what has changed in the last 5 years? Yeah, obviously a lot has happened in the last 5 years, right? COVID happened. So I've definitely noticed that kids have gotten much, much better at reading comprehension. And my guess is probably because you guys were forced to like sit at home and like read emails and like come to Zoom calls and stuff, right? And like when you force like teenagers to like come to Zoom calls and like handle their own school material and like read emails, obviously they're naturally going to become really good at reading comprehension. The other thing I've definitely noticed is suddenly most kids are absolutely terrible at math. And also, the other thing that really stands out is nobody knows how to use their calculator. And you know, why do you think that is? It's probably because like everyone's addicted to their iPhones, right? I ask kids to bring their calculator to their math class. Everyone is using their iPhone. And it's just, at a certain point you just have to ask yourself, right? Why am I using my iPhone for my ACT prep practice? Well, is it because the iPhone is a useful tool as a calculator? No, it's not. Hopefully you know this already. The calculator app on the iPhone is ridiculously bad. It's utter trash. And there's like a really good reason for that. You know, the person who invented iPhones, Steve Jobs, the last thing he wanted you to use your iPhone for is a calculator. He hated the calculator app. He fired everyone who made that calculator app because he hated it so much. why, and you know, it's very simple to explain why. Like, why did Steve Jobs not want people to use their iPhone as a calculator? Well, it's just because he thought calculators were lame. He didn't want iPhones to be lame. He wanted iPhones to be cool. That's why. And you know, at a certain point, you just have to realize, right? Like, why am I using my iPhone as a calculator instead of my real calculator that my parents paid $150 for? It's because you're addicted to your iPhone, right? It's not because there's any benefit to using your iPhone as a calculator instead of your actual calculator. And you know, like, I feel that. Like, obviously, I'm also addicted to my iPhone. Your parents are addicted to their iPhones. Everyone's addicted to their iPhones, right? But definitely a part of growing up is, like, recognizing when you have a problem and, like, realizing that you should, when you have a scenario like practicing for the ACT, you should stop using your iPhone, right? Like, there's so many reasons not to use your iPhone when you're preparing for the ACT. Like, hopefully you realize if you even touch your iPhone during the real test, you're going to be escorted out of the building, and your score is disqualified, and you're not getting your money back. Um, just definitely just get used to using your actual calculator, right? And I swear to God, right? Like, because, and here's the other way to look at it, right? Because the vast majority of high school students in 2023 have literally never touched their calculator, like, if you spend 25 minutes practicing using your calculator, I guarantee you you're already better than 99% of high school students using a calculator. Like, the calculator is very easy to use. If you try it for 25 minutes, you're going to improve at it very, very quickly. It's just, there's absolutely no reason to not to use the calculator. It's so helpful. Yeah, like, again, yeah, hardest questions in the test. You just grab your calculator, punch some numbers in, and then you're done, right? Yeah, and again, very simply, right? Like, can you do this on your iPhone? No, you can't. Yeah, kids will be like, the most frustrating kids will be like, oh, but did you know that, yeah, you know, I know what it looks like, right? I know what iPhones look like. Oh, did you know that you could turn your iPhone sideways and it gives you the scientific mode? Yes, I know that. Like, there's still, like, how are you going to do this? You can't. Like, oh, God, stop it. 0 squared divided by 7. Okay, I guess it does work, but, like, it's annoying. You have to be very, very careful, right? Whereas, like, this one, like, you can see where your mistakes are. Mm-hmm. That's funny. It actually did work. Let me try it again. Let's see. So the important one is this one, right? 4 squared divided by 16 plus 0 squared divided by 49. Curious. It actually does work. I'm really surprised by that. Yeah, like, I didn't know that the iPhone could, like, store this number and then recognize that I'm going to square and divide and then add that number to the first number. Impressive. Maybe it's been updated in the last couple of years. They heard me. They heard me talking trash for the last 5 years, and they updated it. Maybe. It definitely, Steve Jobs died back in, like, 2018. So maybe the Tim Cook wants the calculator on the iPhone to be better. Definitely this is a losing battle, right? Yeah, no matter how many times I tell teenagers not to use their iPhone, like, they're not going to listen. It is the way it is. Definitely, I love my iPhone. Yeah, without my iPhone, I would not make it to work on time, right? I'm so painfully reliant on it. Okay, let's just do some problems. That's enough talk. Let's do some problems. Let's start with question 11. In ABC, triangle ABC, the sum of the measures of A and B is 47. What is the measure of angle C? Yeah, maybe you know how to solve this immediately, but I think it's always nice to just draw it. So A and B are actually going to be pretty small angles. Let's see. I'm going to try my best. What is this triangle going to look like? So, like, A is going to be quite small, and then B is also quite small. So maybe, like, something like this. A, B, C. And then, so let's call this, like, X and Y. And, you know, I'll just call this angle C. So here, so angle C plus X and Y. Actually, let's just use angle A and angle B, right? So hopefully this makes sense. Angle C plus angle A plus angle B. What is this going to be equal to? Definitely this is always equal to 180, right? Yeah, the interior angles of a triangle always equal to 180. They tell you that A plus B, the sum of the measures A plus B is 47. Well, this question becomes very simple. Angle C plus 47 equals 180. Yeah, what is 180 minus 47? It's going to be 133. Yeah, it's D. Where's the calculator? Where's it? Absolutely. Let's keep track of my answers here. Starting from 11. Question 12. In the school cafeteria, students choose their lunch from 3 sandwiches, 3 soups, and 4 salads, and 2 drinks. How many different lunches are possible for a student who chooses exactly 1 sandwich, 1 soup, 1 salad, and 1 drink? Yeah, these questions, pretty simple. If you just want like the algorithm, right? Yeah, for a lot of these, like all you really need to know is the algorithm. So we have all these options. Well, here it becomes very simple. You do 3 times 3 times 4 times 2, and then you're done. So this is 9, 36 plus times 2 is going to be 64. No, it must be 72. Okay, let's try that again. 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 4 is 36. Okay, 36 times 2 is 72, not 64. Whoops. Makes sense. Makes sense. Too early in the morning to do mental arithmetic. That's why I have my calculator. Brilliant. Yeah, so here, there's a couple different ways to think about it, right? So at each step there's 3 options. Yeah, so like you can definitely visualize it, right? So let's say there's like BLT, there's also tuna, and then there's like a meatball. So here's the 3 different sandwiches, right? And then there's 4 different soups. I don't care. Let's just call it 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not really a soup person. So hopefully you realize, like, if I pick BLT, I already have 4 different choices, right? So I could have a BLT and then one of the 4 soups. That's obviously 4 choices. So each of the sandwiches have 4 choices. That's why you do, or I guess there's only 3 soups. There's only 3 soups. There's a question in the chat. Since the last 10 questions are usually the hardest, can you go over them? I mean, I can. Yeah, like, yeah, definitely. That's yeah. So we'll do like the easier ones, and then we'll do the harder ones. Definitely. The plan was just to go in order. Like, yeah, we'll work on the moderate problems today, and then we'll work on the hardest problems on Friday. But we can just jump to the hardest problems today. That's fun. And definitely, like, since I'm like extra tired, it'll be extra interesting. Yeah, I might make a mistake, and then definitely, honestly, this kind of practice. Obviously not optimal, right? You want to be in a good condition to practice, but it's not a bad idea to practice when you're tired. Definitely, it can be like discouraging to make more mistakes than usual, but also it kind of like it starts highlighting like your flaws, right? Sometimes like you can cover up your flaws with like a variety of techniques when you're fresh, but like when you're tired, your flaws really come to light, and recognizing like where you struggle is also a really good way to practice. Yeah, so here hopefully you can tell, like, so if I have a VLT, I can choose one of the 3 soups. There's 3 options, right? Well, there's 3 options for each of the 3 sandwiches. That's why there's 9, 3 times 3. And then you have to realize for every sandwich soup option, I could choose one of 4 salads, right? That's why we do 3 times 3 times 4. And then once I pick a salad, I can choose one of 2 drinks. So that's why there's 3 times 3 times 4 times 2. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Definitely you want to know this one. 13, for 2 consecutive integers, the result of adding the small integer and triple the large integer is 79. What are the 2 integers? Okay, so here are some I would say this is a classic ACT style problem. We have 2 consecutive integers. Well, that means like, 2 and 3, or like 7 and 8. 2 numbers that are in order, right? And the result of adding the smaller integer to triple the larger integer is 79. What are the 2 integers? Definitely this one you just want to work backwards from the answers, right? Just try it. Just follow the instructions. So I feel like, I don't know. I want to start in the middle. Why? I don't really know. I don't really know. Actually, it's definitely not going to be C, because the final number needs to be 9, right? Let's see if I can be smart about this. Maybe it's B. 20 times 3 plus 19. Wow. Free. How did I know it was B? This is the type of skill that like really I cannot teach at all. How can I just look at these 5 answer choices and know that it's going to be B, right? Well, first you just start by guessing, okay, I think definitely like, this is just guess and check, right? Yeah, so I just guess and check really quickly. So I'm thinking like maybe it's C. And I'm looking at C, and I'm like, well, if I triple this number, I get a 3 for the final number. And then if I add 20, the final number is still going to be 3. I'm looking for the ones digit to be 9. And I'm like looking through the numbers, and like, which one of these gives me a final digit of 9? And the one that stands out to me immediately is B. Like, so here, I multiply this one by 3. The final number is still going to be 0. Well, if I add a 19, well, the final number is going to be 9. This is a good sign. So I checked it. Turns out to be the correct answer. Like, obviously, if you try the other ones, it's not going to be correct, right? 18 plus 19 times 3. This ain't it. 39. Yeah, 39 plus 40. I mean, this one also ends in 9, but like, I don't know. I can just see it. This is not the correct answer. This number's gonna be huge. Yeah, that's not it. Can you solve this one algebraically? I suppose you could. I don't know why you would do it that way, but you could do like x plus 3y. You could set up a system of equations, right? X plus 3y equals 79, and then x plus 1 equals y, right? Yeah, so you do x plus 3x plus 1 equals 79, so you get 4x, distribute the 3x plus x is 4x plus 3 equals 79, 4x equals 70, what is 76, divide this by 4, it should be 19. Yeah, definitely you can solve it this way, and then if x is 19, then y is 20. It turned out pretty simple, actually. It wasn't as hard as I was thinking. So if you can set up the algebraic equations and do the substitution, definitely you can solve it more directly that way. But I would say overwhelmingly superior strategy here is just get your calculator, start punching the numbers into your calculator. Like, you just, yeah, like, as useful as algebra is, I would say in the ACT especially, yeah, grabbing your calculator and punching numbers in is like definitively the optimal strategy. Like, it just works on like a solid half of the problems. 14, a function f is defined by f of x is equal to negative 8x squared. What is f of negative 3? And definitely, yeah, so definitely I run into students where like this is the issue, right? Lots of kids, maybe the most common question that I get in the math test is, I don't know what to do. What should I do? The answer to that question is usually very straightforward. I would say like 75% of the time, if a student asks, I don't know what to do, what am I supposed to do in this question? Usually it comes down to plug the number into the equation. This one's like a really simple one, right? And most people will recognize that that's what you're supposed to do. Plug the number into the equation, but I guarantee you, like, no matter how hard the question is, there's a solid 3 out of 4 chance that all the ACT wants you to do is plug the number into the equation. Like, this is kind of how math works, right? In math, they give you an equation, they give you a number, guess what they want you to do, right? This kind of stuff needs to click. If the ACT gives you an equation, and then they give you a number, like, try to guess what they want you to do. They want you to plug the number into the equation. So here, very simple, very simple. Negative 8 times 9 is negative 72. Yeah, and here, you need to keep track of the negative numbers, right? Definitely, this is one thing that's really good to go over. One of the most common mistakes in the ACT, lots of kids will do this, right? And, you know, hopefully, like, if your brain is on, hopefully you realize negative 3 times negative 3 is not negative 9, it's positive 9. Yeah, you've known this since you were, what, 7? Like, this type of stuff, yeah, keep your brain on, right? Definitely the most common mistake that I see when I work with kids in the ACT or the SAT, there's a huge difference between parentheses negative 3 squared and negative 3 squared. And that's because the negative sign in mathematics is considered a multiplication operator. So if you follow PEMDAS, if you have negative 3 squared like this, you do 3 squared first 9, you multiply that by the negative sign to get negative 9. Whereas if you have parentheses negative 3 squared, this is negative 3 times negative 3, this is positive 9, right? And it's just, it's like super frustrating. It's just pure laziness, right? Like, so everybody knows that x squared and negative x squared. So if I show you negative x squared versus negative x squared, right? Everyone knows that these two are different. But for some reason, no one knows that these two are different. Why? It's literally the same thing. It's just because most kids hate math and they hate thinking about it, so they haven't spent the 2 seconds to think about why this is the case. But hopefully now you've thought about it, right? Don't make this mistake. You know, even I make this mistake sometimes, but definitely the ACT is going to try to catch you on this one 5 times per test. Like, yeah, definitely know this one. Just, I'm being a little mean. I'm sorry. It's just, this one, I really want to emphasize this one. Yeah, literally, like, in any given year, in any given test, the most number of points are being lost because of this situation right here. There's a huge difference between -3 squared and parentheses -3 squared. And hopefully, like, once you think about it for a second, it's just so obvious, right? Obviously, -3 times -3 is +9. And it's just, you have to learn how to, and this is what I mean by you need to learn how to use your calculator. There's like these unique features that you want to get used to quickly. Okay, if 3 to the x is equal to 54, which of the following must be true? Here I would also just recommend just guess and check, right? So let's just try, like, obviously 3 squared is just 9. We need something more than that. 3 to the third, this is 27. What's 3 to the fourth? It's going to be 81. Correct answer C. Right? Yeah, so here, 3 to the third is 27. 3 to the fourth is 81. So where's 54? Well, 54 is going to be somewhere between 3 and 4, right? Yeah, there's no need to think about it. Just ask the calculator. And you know, like, like if you want to solve it algebraically, right? Yeah, you can learn this new skill called logarithms, right? So you can do, like, if you have 3x equals 54, like, you know, how would I do it? Definitely you can do like log base 3, but I would probably just like raise everything to the e. Why? It just makes my life easier, I think. No, I would actually take the natural log of both sides. So I would just take the natural log of both sides. This becomes, so x natural log. There's a lot of logarithmic rules, right? That, like, it definitely, logarithms take a very long time to learn, but it's a very powerful tool. So x equals natural log 54 over natural log 3. Yeah, so you can take the natural log of both sides whenever you want. It's just recognizing that when it's useful, taking the natural log of both sides is useful when the variable that you want to solve is in the exponent. Why? Because there's this rule where if you take the natural log of some number to the exponent, you can drop, that's going to be equal to that number times the natural log of the base. This is why the natural log is so powerful. And then, so here, now I can just divide both sides by natural log 3, and I can directly calculate the answer, natural log 54 divided by natural log 3, right? And then here is, and just to prove it to you, right? So if I do 3 to the 3 point, there's going to be like a rounding error. It's fine. Hopefully everyone will understand what's going on. 754. Yeah, so here there's a slight rounding error, right? So if you want the exact answer, definitely you can do something like this. You can do like 3 to the, and then just literally type in natural log 54 divided by natural log 3. And then this is definitely just going to give me 54, right? It is true, and this number is definitely between 3 and 4. Yeah, like, you know, but again, the ACT absolutely does not expect you to know how to do this. This is a pretty high level mathematical technique. Like, they just want you, they literally, like, hopefully this is just becoming exceptionally clear, right? They just want you to grab your calculator. Like, they're trying to get you to see that the calculator is useful. That is literally their goal. They just want you to use your calculator so badly. They're just willing to give you, they're willing to give you a 30 in this test if you are just willing to use your calculator for an hour. Right? Yeah, 60, same deal. You just take these numbers, least common multiple. Hopefully everyone knows how to do this. What does it mean to have a least common multiple? We're looking for a number that is divisible by 70, 60, and 50, and we're looking for the smallest number, right? Here, the answer is definitely, I think, I'm pretty confident that it's J. I'm not 100% confident, but I'm pretty confident that it's J. How do I know that? Well, dividing by 5 is pretty easy, right? If something is divisible by 50, it's either going to end in 50 or it's going to end in 0, 0. So obviously the answer is not F, G, or H. And K, I think K is probably just 70 times 60 plus 50, or no, 70 times 60 times 50. I feel like that's too easy. That's too easy. I just need to make sure that this number, J, is divisible by, obviously this one's divisible by 50, right? Hopefully I don't even need to plug this in. You can just see that as well. It ends in 0, 0. Hopefully it's divisible by 60. Yes. Hopefully it's also divisible. This one's definitely divisible by 70, right? 21 is divisible by 7. So 2. 2100 is definitely divisible by 70. Yes, J is the correct answer. 17. Hotshot Electronics is designing a package box for its new line of acoustic Odyssey speakers. The box is a rectangular prism with a length of 45 centimeters, width of 30 centimeters, and a volume of 31,000 cubic centimeters. What is the height of the box in centimeters? Okay, very, very simple. So, rectangular prism, right? You definitely you want to know what this term means. Rectangular prism is just a fancy word for a box. So we have a rectangular prism. This looks more like a stick of butter. It's fine. So length is 45, width is 30. My picture's way off, it's fine. What's the height, right? Yeah, so here hopefully everyone knows that the volume of a box is equal to the length times width times height, right? Well, they told you that the volume of the box is 81,000. So this is going to be equal to 30 times 45 times h. Okay. Let's do 30 times 45. And then let's do 81,000 divided by 1350. Answer 60. B. And you know, like for like I'm sure some of you here are like, oh my god, these questions are so easy. I'm so bored right now. I'm sorry, right? You're definitely like the math. This is another reason why teaching math is so hard. Yeah, the skill set, like the skill levels among students in the math section is way wider than the English section, or even the science section, but I promise you we'll look at the hardest problems in a moment. 4 points, A, B, C, D, lie in a circle having a circumference 15 units, B is 2 units counterclockwise from A, C is 5 units counterclockwise from A, D is 7 units counterclockwise from A, and 8 units counterclockwise from A. What is the order of the points starting from A and going clockwise around the circle? Okay, this is a very unique problem. I've never seen anything like this. So let's just put A on the top. And the circumference is 15 units. So B is 2 units, right? So I'm trying to like visualize 2/15 of the circle. I mean, technically you can use like the calculator. Okay, so you could do something like this, right? You could do 360 times 2 divided by 15. But usually, you know, even before I actually calculate it, I'm just gonna eyeball it, right? So if this would be like 7 or 8, this would be like 8 right here. This would be like 7. So like this is gonna be like 3. I think 2 is like here. I think 2 units is going to be, come on, zoom, work with me, give me the pen. I think B's here. No, they said counterclockwise, whoops, let's put it here, B's over here. And then if I do the calculation, it's about 48 degrees, so it's actually more like here. I was off by a little bit. Let's fix it, So 48 degrees is going to be more like here. Okay, I was pretty close. C is 5 units clockwise from A. So again, like this is 7, this is 8. So like 5 is probably gonna be like here-ish. And then D is 7 units clockwise, and that's definitely here. That's D. What is the order? Starting with A going clockwise. Well, we have A, C, D, B. A, C, D, B is J. So here, like the actual angle didn't turn out to be particularly important. It's just the order, right? Hopefully you realize like if B is counterclockwise and then C is 5 units clockwise and D is 7 units clockwise, well obviously D is going to be further away from A than C, right? I'm pretty sure this is it. It's not too hard. It can be tempting to like calculate this stuff, but for this type of problem you don't even really need to. Group of cells grow in a number as described by the equation y equals 16t 2 to the t, where t represents the number of days and y represents the number of cells. According to this formula, how many cells will be in the group at the end of the first 5 days? Well, this is very simple. Again, they give you an equation, they give you a number. What do you think they want you to do? They want you to plug the number into the equation, right? You know, sometimes another situation is like they'll give you an equation with 2 variables and they'll give you 2 numbers, right? And a lot of kids are like, how am I supposed to know which number is which? Well, if you don't know which number is which, the obvious thing to do is just try both, right? You like try plugging in one for one, the other for the other one. If that number matches one of the answer choices and it sounds reasonable, pick that one. If it doesn't show up in the answer choices, well, mix it up, do it the other way, right? And I think like this is like pretty straightforward. I think like okay, let's break it down, right? So if I had to like give like a general like a flow chart. If I had to give a flow chart for like what to do when you run into a problem and you're not sure what to do, right? I would say try some algebra. Like let's see which order. What's the optimal order? Honestly, the optimal order depends on who you are, but I would say like work backwards from the answers is probably a good place to start. Work backwards. You just don't know what to do. Work backwards from the answer. And then if you can get the answer that way, that's fantastic, right? The next one I would probably do is like draw a figure or use the figure, right? If there's no figure, make your own figure. Use the figure, draw your own figure. I don't know, definitely use your calculator. Just try plugging in some numbers, right? You see if you like, definitely these questions, you have to recognize like they're kind of designed so that if you just start stumbling around, like you're gonna end up at the correct answer. And I would actually be very grateful for that. Yeah, so definitely one thing that's really nice about high school level math problems is that if you just like start doing some of the stuff that you've learned in algebra class, right? Yeah, the problems are designed so that if you just try some of the stuff that you've learned in school, you're going to end up at the answer. And the reason why I say you should be grateful for that is because like once you get to college, especially when you get into like the real world, right? Yeah, like most problems don't have solutions, you know? Like if you, and definitely in the real world, when you run into a problem that has a mathematical solution, right? I'm like incredibly grateful. These situations are very, very rare. But here you have 60 problems in a row where like, if you just try the stuff that you've learned in school, you're eventually going to end up at the answer. And then just, I would say like, try working backwards from the answer, try drawing a picture, try using the calculator, and then I would say 4 is just like, use algebra. Worst case scenario, just use some algebra, right? Do the stuff that they taught you in school. And definitely, especially in high school, I would say this is kind of the key to doing well in math. Like, the earlier you realize this, the easier math class is. So many kids are always like, I just don't know what to do. Like, we're working on this problem, we've practiced the same, like, so, like, here's the setup for math class in high school, right? The teacher gets in front of you in class, and they tell you how to do something, right? And then they give you a bunch of examples, and they have the class try it together, and then they give you a homework assignment, right? The homework assignment starts with just basic algebra problems, and you just practice that skill over and over and over. You do that same skill 20 times in a row. And then they give you a word problem, right? But it never fails. As soon as we get to the first word problem, like 75% of kids are like, I don't know what to do. It's just, it was frustrating for me even when I was 12. It's just, what do you think they want you to do, right? Maybe they want you to do that thing that they've been talking about for the last 30 minutes and the thing that you've just practiced 20 times in a row. Like, this is literally how math classes are designed. They teach you something, they have you practice it 20 times in a row, and then they give you a word problem. Guess what the word problem wants you to do? They want you to do that exact same thing that you just did 20 times, right? It's like, as soon as you recognize that, math class becomes so simple. The length of a rectangle is 3 times the length of a small rectangle. The two rectangles have the same width. The area of the smaller rectangle is a squared units. The area of the larger rectangle is ka squared units. Which of the following is the value of k? And then I think, like, just to make like a nice analogy, right? Like, I think a really good way to think about it is, like, why do you think your grandmother is so good at cooking? Well, your grandmother is really good at cooking because she's tried everything. Like, she's lived a very long life. She's cooked like thousands, if not tens of thousands of meals. And it's the same for anything, including math. If you just try it all, just try everything. Try everything that you know how to do. And like, definitely, this is how you solve problems in real life, right? Like, if you run into problems in real life, there's no textbook for solving real problems. There is like, no one's going to teach you like real world problems are going to be unique to you, right? Like, in this scenario, the best approach is try everything that you know how to do until it works, right? This is just like good advice for life in general. Length of a rectangle is 3 times the length of a smaller rectangle. Okay, so we have 2 rectangles. And then one's really long, like 3 times as long. It's a little bit too long, it's fine. So let's call this x, let's call this 3x. Have the same width, and they have width and width, sure. The area of the smaller rectangle is a, okay? So a equals wx. And then the larger rectangle is ka, which is equal to w times 3x. It's just 3. Right, yeah, hopefully this makes sense. So a is equal to xw, right? X times w. And then ka, the area, the larger rectangle, is definitely equal to 3xw. And then here, you can do some substitution if you want, right? Yeah, maybe this is the easiest way for you guys to see it. So I can replace this a with xw. Kxw equals 3xw. Like, obviously, k is 3. Does that make sense? I feel like I've been really mean today. I don't mean to be mean. I'm just like trying to explain the test. And then this is definitely like one of the issues of being old and like doing the SAT or ACT prep for like 5 years in a row. Like, my brain is just filled with like memories of these kids that are jerks to me. And then like definitely those are the memories that stick in a human mind, right? Yeah, really I should like try to cherish those moments where students asked active questions and like were really nice and saw really great improvements. And definitely, there are plenty of kids that like that too. Oh my god, like I would say definitely one of my favorite experiences in tutoring is I worked with this Nigerian kid. Actually still work with him. I'm very close to their family at this point. But I worked with this Nigerian kid. He was in like first grade, and I'm pretty sure that they're actually Nigerian royalty. The dad works for Amazon. He's like a top lawyer for Amazon, and the mom works for Google. And like in their house, absolutely gorgeous. It's just plastered with portraits of incredibly looking African, older African people in what looks like royal garb. I'm assuming this is literally their grandparents. But this kid in first grade, he was hard of hearing. He had just had surgery so that he could hear for the first time in his life. So he had like a severe speech impediment, but it was very obvious that this kid was very, very smart, right? Yeah, like his kids are literally Nigerian royalty. Like the one dad is a top lawyer at Amazon, and his mom is an engineer for Google. But obviously, like regardless of how smart you are, if you can't hear, your reading comprehension and your speaking is going to be very rough, right? Well, I worked with him for like just a couple months. Yeah, I just like they just wanted me to like read with him, help him learn to read and write. So I like brought him all my favorite books. I actually love Elephant and Picky. I actually love children's books. I'm a big fan of children's book. I love Dr. Seuss. I think like Elephant and Picky, Mo Willems is even better than Dr. Seuss. And I read I read the books. Yeah, when I read these books, I get really excited, which also helps the kid be really excited. And the crazy part was like I worked with him for like 9 months. He went in the Washington State standardized exams for elementary school students. He went from a 25th percentile, right, the lower quarter. Obviously, if you can't hear anything, you're not going to be very good at reading and writing tests. But in a period of 9 months, he went from the 25th percentile all the way up to the 75th percentile, right? He literally jumped over half of the state in a period of 9 months. It was absolutely incredible. And like definitely these are the type of moments that like make me really look forward to life in general. And like this kid, now he's like in 5th grade. He's so smart. He loves basketball. It's just a good time. Okay, let's have you guys jump back into the ACT from 2020. Let's have you guys scroll down to page 17 of 55, start at question 11. Read questions carefully, eliminate the incorrect answers, use your calculator right. Really, the key here is don't give up. Don't be afraid to use common sense, right? So like 14 is a great question. Don't give up. They even give you the equation for the ellipse if you need it. Like definitely, like don't be afraid to just type in the numbers, right? I'm going to tell you right now, the answer is not F. Why? 24 minus 24 times pi, this is a negative number. There's no way the shaded region has an area that's negative. That's ludicrous. We talked about this part, right? You try your best. It's okay to miss questions. We'll work on it together, right? And for the kids where this stuff is too easy, definitely double check your answers. Make sure you get them all correct. And then if you still have time left over, once you finish 11 through 20, just move on to question 21, 22, 23, right? ACT December 2020 math test. Questions 11 through 20. 10 questions. I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. Paper, pencil, calculator ready to go. 10 minutes on the clock. And, thank you guys so much for being here, right? I really appreciate you guys. Can I get a ready in the chat? Brilliant. 10 minutes. 10 questions. Let's begin.
Lady
right, 10 minutes is up. Hopefully you guys finished these 10 questions here, 11 through 20. Let's go over the answers. Starting from 11, we have A. 12 is H, 13 C cat, 14 H, 15 C, 16 J, 17 D dog, 18 is K, 19 is B boy, 20 F. Hopefully you're seeing some solid results here. Definitely, I think a really great way to study for the math test is to just run through the first 20 questions of all the practice tests, right? Hopefully you definitely have this bookmarked by now. But just work through all of these, right? Just open them all up, download them all. Just make sure the first 20 questions in each of these practice tests, you can just nail it every single time, right? Once you're there, definitely, I think you can expect some solid results in the ACT, and definitely the skills that you build while practicing the easy questions will directly help you in the harder questions as well. If you did miss any questions, it's okay. Let's go over them together. Remember, I would say every 2 questions that you fix, right? That's just a full point increase in the ACT, and each point of the ACT is massive. Where's the link for this one? Let me send you guys the link one more time. Link. No questions? Everyone got all 10 questions correct? I mean, definitely, that's what I want to hear. The easiest questions you've ever seen. So free. So free. Like 20, don't be intimidated by questions like 20, right? Here you just add up all the numbers. 9.25, so you can even do 9 plus a quarter. That's also fine. Plus 6 plus 3/4. I made a typo. Oh god. Can't be making typos. No typos. Hopefully you definitely know that 1/2 is 0.5, so definitely you could use 7.5, right? And then you multiply this by $7.20, right? And the correct answer should be F. 20's F, yes. 14, you only missed one. Good, great place to be. Great place to be. 14, okay. So here, okay. Let me show you the actual solution first, right? So we have this square, we have this ellipse, right? So hopefully you can tell that essentially we're looking for the area of the rectangle. Let's call that R, and then we're going to subtract the area of the ellipse, right? So we're looking for something like R minus E, the area of the rectangle minus the area of the ellipse. If you use the formula, hopefully you definitely know the area of a rectangle, right? It's width times base times height. So this one is going to be 24. And then what is the area of an ellipse? They even just tell you here. A is, the area of the ellipse is pi times A and B. What is A and B? A is 1/2 the major axis. And maybe I should have gone over this. The major axis is the long diameter. So here, this one, half of it, that's going to be 3. And then this one, the minor axis is 4, right? Well, half the minor axis is 2. So the answer is definitely 24 minus 6 pi. But again, even if you can't piece all this together, like hopefully you can tell it's either going to be FG or H, just like using common sense, right? I'm looking for the area of the rectangle minus the area of the ellipse. I'm looking for something like FG and H. But even if you can't get that, like just try plugging the numbers into the calculator, right? So here I try to guide you in the correct direction. If you do 24 minus 24 times minus 24 times pi, you can definitely use 3.14 if you want. This is a negative number. This is not the correct answer. The area of the shaded region is absolutely not negative. And then G actually has the exact same issue. So if you do 24 minus 12 pi, this is still a negative number. There's no way this area is negative. This is an obnoxious answer. Immediately eliminate F and G. And then even at this point, like if you can eliminate F and G and recognize that we're looking for one number minus another number, right? So it's the area of the rectangle. You subtract the area of the ellipse. That's the shaded region. Maybe you can immediately pick H, right? But even if you can't do that, like just type everything in. So if you do this one, I would say like this is a very sensible answer. So the whole rectangle is 24, and the shaded region is like a pretty small fraction of the rectangle. 5 sounds very reasonable. So if you do like 6 pi, the issue with 6 pi, so this is the area of the ellipse. 18 out of 24, that's like way more than half of the rectangle, right? It's just too much. And then k is a ludicrous answer as well. So here if you do 24 plus 6 pi, well, now this is larger than the rectangle. Like obviously the shaded region is going to be smaller than the area of the rectangle. It just doesn't make sense, right? And definitely, obviously if you can like solve the answer directly, that's the best thing to do, right? But even if you can't solve the answer directly, you want to kind of like keep your wits about you, right? You stay focused. Like the questions in the ACT are usually designed so that you can quickly eliminate incorrect answers. And here, yeah, F and G, obviously the answer is not negative. K is, I would also say, is an equally ludicrous answer. The area of the shaded region is not more than the rectangle. And then you're down to the 50-50, H versus J. That's already a good place to be. But here, definitely the correct answer is H and not J. Yeah, J is too big, and definitely, in general, you're looking for one number minus another number, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, let's go over 11 and 17. Okay, so this one, just classic word problem. Banu will build a fence around a rectangular 30 by 20 foot area. Okay. Let's visualize that. So we have 30, 25. And then fencing costs 405 per foot. Definitely this is a very common mistake. You have to recognize when you need the area, when you need the perimeter. This time we definitely need the perimeter, right? We need the fencing. The distance of fencing that we need is the distance all the way around the rectangle. So this one, hopefully you realize that this side is also going to be 30, this side is going to be 25, so we have 50 plus 60, that's 110, and then each foot of fencing is going to cost $4.05, so you just do 110 times 4.05. Yeah, again, like, so here definitely the answer is A. For a lot of students, even when they say like, what is the perimeter of the shape, lots of kids will just start calculating the area, and it's just, just don't do that. You need to recognize like when they're asking for the, sometimes they'll just straight up ask for the perimeter, and you definitely know the difference between the perimeter and the area, right? Perimeter is the distance around the shape, area is the space inside the shape. Here, definitely you want the perimeter. For the fencing, you multiply it by the cost. We're done. Not too bad, right? You can get this one in the future for sure. And then 17. This one, okay, so we have Juanita. There's a home. Okay, so let's say this is Juanita's home. She walks east, 0.3 miles, okay? And then she walks north, 0.4 miles. And the question is, what is the distance this way? If like we didn't go east and then north, what if we just like went in a straight line from her house to the bakery? This is the bakery, right? Definitely you can use the Pythagorean theorem. Maybe also you just recognize that this is a 3, 4, 5 right triangle. Yes, so if you go east and then go north, definitely that's a right angle, right? But you can definitely, use the Pythagorean theorem. Let's call it C. So here, you grab your calculator, 0.3 squared plus 0.4 squared, square root of that answer, square root of the answer is 0.5. How do you feel about that one? Really, you definitely want to make sure you get this one, I think. Yeah, I think this type of question will probably come up like 3 times per test. It definitely, I would say the most common equation that they ask you to use in the ACT math test is the Pythagorean theorem. Am I making sense? Yeah, definitely. I love going over the easy ones, right? Yeah, once you see it, it's just so obvious. Definitely get it next time. And of course, like, if you're only missing 2 out of 10, that's a good place to be. But, of course, like, why are we here? We're here to continue improving, right? Why stop at 80%? Why not get 100? Why not? Just keep improving. Good. Yeah, if there's any more questions, definitely ask, right? I promise, like, Yeah, the first 20 questions are relatively simple and straightforward. Definitely, once you get to like question 30, that's when things get complicated. Let's see how complicated the questions can get, right? What do you think? Do you guys want me to do it in under 10 minutes? Definitely, I could try that. I think I've seen these questions before. Yeah, it's not going to be as interesting because I've seen these questions before. Yeah, I'll just do them without a timer. Okay, let's go ahead and start at question 50. Okay, so we have Marcia this time. Yeah, so right away, right? We immediately have another right triangle. They probably want us to use the Pythagorean theorem again. She makes handcrafted picture frames, small frames and large frames. It takes her 2 hours to make a small frame and 3 hours to make a large frame. I actually have not seen this question before. Should be interesting. The shaded triangular region shown below is the graph of a system of inequalities representing the weekly constraints Marcia has in making the frames. From making and selling S small frames and L large frames, Marcia makes a profit of $30 for each small frame. Oh my god. So she's selling these frames for like $100? That's crazy. And frames are pretty expensive, honestly. Okay, so for every small frame she makes $30, for every large frame she makes $70. Let's just make a bunch of large frames. Question 50. The weekly constraint represented by the horizontal line segment containing 9-2 means that each week Marcia makes a minimum of. So they're talking about the horizontal line segment, right? So they're talking about this one. Horizontal line segment containing 9-2. What does this mean? So we have to interpret the meaning of this line. Well, it means that she always makes at least 2 large frames, right? Yeah, so any week her work output is somewhere inside of this shape. Well, that means that she makes at least 2 large frames. Yeah, sometimes she makes 0 small frames, right? Yeah, sometimes she makes 3 large frames and no small frames, but according to this graph, she never makes 0 large frames. She always makes at least 2 large frames. Hopefully that makes sense. I forgot to check my answers for the previous one. I just, like, in the math section, I'm just so confident. I don't even bother checking my answers. I should probably check it, right? What if I made a ridiculous mistake? Bad habit. It's a really bad habit of mine. I'm just, yeah, definitely, I'm overconfident in the math section for sure. DKB, FCJ, BJ, D, and then 20 was J. What's question 20? Yeah, 20. I absolutely picked 3 for J. Good. Okay, so definitely 50, I'm saying she makes 2 large frames, F. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, definitely, if something does not make sense, like, stop me. Let's talk about it. $51. For every hour that Marcia spends making frames in the second week of December each year, she donates $3 of the week's profit to a local charity. This year, Marcia made 4 large frames and 2 small frames in that week. Which of the following is closest to the percentage of the week's profit that Marcia donated to charity? For every hour she donates $3. How many hours did she work? Okay. So it takes her 2 hours to make a small frame and 3 hours to make a large frame. Definitely you should just be making large frames, girl. So she made 4 large frames and 2 small frames. So that means 4 times 3 plus 2 times 2, right? Yes, so this is the number of hours she worked. 16. What? She only works 16 hours a week? Amazing. What a life. And then she donates $3 per hour. Okay. So she donated $48. Let's write that down. So she donates $48, but that's not the answer, right? They're asking for like the percentage of money that she donated out of her profit. So she made 4 large, 2 small. 4 large, 2 small. Okay, so it's going to be 30 times 2 small frames plus 70 times 4 large frames. She made this much money. What's the percentage? Well, you just do the division, right? Yeah, lots of steps, but you know, each step individually is like not that big of a deal, right? But it's just putting it all together, and especially in under a minute. Definitely, if you make a mistake at any of these one steps, you're going to run into all sorts of issues. You just got to make sure every step's correct. Yeah, so 4 large frames, 2 small frames, $3 per hour. You need to go back up here to figure out like how many hours does she take per frame, calculate the hours she worked, multiply that by 3 to get the money that she donated. Also, make sure you use the equation to calculate the amount of money that she made. And then they're asking for the percentage. So now you divide these two numbers, right? And here I'm getting 14.1%. Answer is going to be 14%. 52. What is the maximum profit Marcia can earn from the picture frames she makes in 1 week? So this is a slightly more difficult problem, right? It definitely, like, there's plenty of math. How did I get 48? So here, they told me that she made 4 large frames and 2 small frames. And then they also say up here that each small frame takes 2 hours and each large frame takes 3 hours. So the 4 large frames took 12 hours and the 2 small frames took 4 hours for 16 hours total. And then the word problem also said that she donated $3 for every hour that she worked. So if she worked 16 hours and she donated $3 for each hour, you can do 16 times 3 to get 48. Yeah, it's just a lot of steps, but those are the steps. Yeah. Oh, my contacts are freaking out. Stop it. Oh no. What is the maximum profit that she can earn? So here, you definitely, if you want to actually solve this one, like mathematically using algebra, it can get a little complex. Like this is like an optimization problem. So here I would just like to me, just like my gut feeling says that she should just make all large frames. Like my gut instinct says that her maximum profit is 560. How do I, like, so definitely that's not like a great way to take the test, right? This is just a blind guess. Let's see. I mean, we can also try 9 and 2, right? So we can definitely try 70 times 2 plus 30 times 9. And depending, maybe this is more. Maybe this is more. Okay, this is definitely less. Let's try this point here as well, right? So she could also make 6 large frames and 3 small frames. Let's try that. 6 times 7, 70 plus 3 times 30. It's just not, it's going to be less. Yeah, she's making so much money on the large frames. There's no way. Yeah. At this point, I'm pretty confident. Yeah, definitely, like, I could, like, use some calculus, but obviously, like, most of you don't know how to do calculus, so there's no point in teaching that. Here, this is how the ACT wants you to solve it. Just like test the two numbers, maybe just like use your gut intuition. Like definitely, you're making $70 per large frame. Just make all large frames. And then, you know, so you can test this one, you can test this one. Obviously, you should make as many frames as possible. So like, obviously you make more money by making 8 large frames versus two large frames, right? That's obvious. And then here, maybe I would test like one more point in the middle. Like this one's a good point. Yeah, so we have 6 large frames and 3 small frames, and it's still less. At this point, I'm very, very confident that 560 is the correct answer. And then we did this one. What was the answer? Let's just do it again. So we have this determinant situation. Yeah, so the determinant here would be x times x is x. It was 4. The answer was 4. X squared minus 8x, right? And here they like, if you forgot, they literally tell you the equation. The determinant of a matrix is this. You multiply these two numbers, you multiply these two numbers, and then you subtract. So here I'm going to multiply x times x, that's x squared. And then I do 8 times x, that's 8x, and then I'm going to subtract. And they're telling us that the determinant, which is this is the determinant. They're also telling us that the determinant is also 16, right? And then here I can add 16 to both sides to get x squared minus 8x plus 16. And definitely you can factor, that's how I did it last time, right? But here, let's just use the quadratic formula. So 8 plus or minus square root of negative 8 squared would be 64 minus 4 times 16 divided by 2. This is going to be 0. Yeah, 64 minus 64 is 0. 8 divided by 2 is 4 for e. Really, you should just do whichever technique is fastest, right? If you're quick with your factoring, feel free to factor. But if you're not quick with your factoring, just use the quadratic equation, right? They both work. Yeah, definitely the hard part about this problem is just like, if you've never seen, definitely this is a very common setup. I would say this is probably the easiest way to get kids to miss questions, right? So if question 53 was, we have this equation, x squared minus 8x equals negative 16, and find the value of x. Definitely like thousands of kids are getting this answer correct instantly, right? Because you've seen this type of question 100 times in school. But they have the same problem, except they introduce a bunch of concepts that you haven't seen before. Suddenly kids freeze up, they miss the problem, right? Suddenly like 90% of kids are missing this problem just because they added a couple new words, some new concepts that you haven't seen. But if you just see through all that, you follow the instructions, do what they tell you to do, very quickly you're going to realize, oh, this is just a quadratic formula problem that I've seen 100 times. Definitely like a very common setup in the ACT. And definitely it's just not even just math, right? Like the easiest way to get somebody to mess up is just show them something that they've never seen before, right? And definitely, I play, I'm like really into Street Fighter 6, and this is honestly, yeah, for me, like definitely, yeah, I don't know if I brought this up yet, but I hit diamond rank like a couple weeks ago, and definitely I'm to the point where like the people I'm playing against, I've been playing Street Fighter for maybe like 2 months now. I'm definitely playing against people that have been playing this game for like 14 years. It's so annoying. It's like they have so much experience. They know all this different stuff. Like I like try to do these things, but it's obvious to me that they like whatever. And it's also like similar in chess, right? Yeah. Sometimes you can just tell. You're like playing a game of chess, and like you're in this situation that you've never been in before, but it's so obvious that this other person has like experienced this exact scenario 50 times. They're like making each move like in less than a second. Yeah, definitely like the easiest way to handle that scenario is just like purposefully do something weird, like force the situation into an environment where the opponent is like unfamiliar. Like that's obviously that only works if your opponent, like if you're capable of creating that situation. Yeah, obviously regardless of how good I am, there's gonna be people that are like Street Fighter champions or like Magnus Carlsen, right? Like no matter what move I make on the chessboard, he's gonna have experienced that 100 times. But I just try my best. But what am I saying? I'm just saying, like, yeah, just be used to this type of situation. It's a very simple, 53 is a very simple situation, but they add all these like extra concepts for no particular reason, just to confuse you, right? You just stay calm, stay focused. It's okay if you don't know what the determinant is. They literally told you what it is. Just follow the instructions. Work quickly. Yeah, and if you just do that, you'll recognize the problem right away. Okay, 54. The formula for finding a value A dollars of P dollars invested in I% interest compounded annually for N years is A equals P times 1 plus 0.01 I to the N. Which of the following is an expression for P in terms of I, N, and A? You definitely want to get used to this type of sentence. Which of the following is an expression for P in terms of I, N, and A? Yeah, this is a very fancy way of saying solve for P. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, again, it's a similar situation to before. If you say like solve for P, most kids understands what that means, right? Most kids understand what that means, right? But here, if you just switch it up, instead of saying solve for P, you say which of the following is an expression of P in terms of I, N, and A. Suddenly, thousands of kids are missing the question. But for you guys, that's not going to happen for you guys, right? Why? Because I told you. This just means solve for P. Let's do that. And definitely recognize this one. Yeah, this statement is guaranteed to show up in your test like 5 times. This one's very simple. You just divide both sides by 1 plus 0.01 I to the N. 1 plus... I don't even... Oh, God. Yeah, it's like more annoying to write than it is to solve. The correct answer is just this one. Yeah, definitely, I would say the hard part is like trying to figure out what they want you to do. But once you recognize what they want you to do, it's just so straightforward. You solve for P, I just need to divide by this, I'm done. It's a one-step solution. 55. If x and y are real numbers such that x is greater than 1 and y is less than -1, which of the following inequalities must be true? So for these, like, I don't really, like, definitely I would say one of the difficult parts about the ACT is at this point, I'm like tired, you know? Like, I've been doing, like, I've literally done 100 multiple choice questions already at this point, right? And I'm tired. I just don't want to think that hard. What am I going to do? Well, if they tell you x is some number bigger than 1, y is some number less than -1, whatever, fine, x is 2. The first number that comes to mind for me, pick a number greater than 1. I'm picking 2. Pick a number less than -1. I'm picking -2. Okay? Okay, so this one would mean, so we have 2 divided by -2 is greater than 1. No, this is -1. -1 is definitely not greater than 1. Absolute value of x squared is greater than absolute value of y. So this isn't the correct answer, actually. So absolute value of 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. Absolute value of -2 is definitely... No, it's not true. It's not true. So, okay, here it ends up... Okay, actually, it's not true. But hopefully you can imagine very clearly, like, yes, it works if x is 2 and y is -2, but what if y was like -100? Well, then that would not be true. I almost made a mistake there. Almost made a really unfortunate mistake. So B happens to be true for these two examples, but yeah, I spent a couple extra seconds thinking about it. Yeah, there are definitely scenarios where this is not true. Yeah, so if y were -100, then this would not be true. How about this one? Maybe I should just actually do it algebraically. I'm like, this strategy is running into issues already. Like, definitely, that's another big part of the ACT. Like, definitely, like, have a strategy, right? But if the strategy's not working, sometimes you just need to be ready to switch. Yeah, the correct answer is C. Let me make sure. I'm pretty sure the correct answer is C here. Let me see if I can prove it algebraically. So if we have x over 3 minus 5 is greater than y over 3 minus 5, definitely I can add 5 to both sides, right? To get x over 3 is greater than y over 3. And then here I can multiply both sides by 3. In general, you can treat inequalities exactly like equations. You know, the one thing that you got to watch out for is if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you need to switch the symbol, right? Yeah, so example, so if you have x is greater than 3, well, negative x is less than -3. If I multiply both sides by -1, I have to flip the sign. And you know, if you're wondering why you have to do that, it's actually very simple. So hopefully you recognize, like, 3 is less than 5, right? Well, what happens if I make both of those numbers negative? Hopefully this is very obvious. -3 is greater than -5. It's as simple as that. That's why you need to flip the sign. It's just how numbers work. So here, if I go ahead and multiply both sides by 3, what do I get? I get x is greater than y. X is greater than y. Well, this is definitely true. So if x is a positive number greater than 1 and y is a negative number less than -1, well, a positive number is always going to be bigger than a negative number. So the correct answer has to be C. Yeah, so here, yeah, definitely, you know, if x is 2 and then y is, again, if y is a -100, obviously -100 squared is going to be 10,000. Yeah, that's way more. This is not true. This is also a good thing to know. So if you have a negative exponent, x to the -2 power, that's equal to 1 over x squared. Yeah, this one you should just know. X to the -2 power is equal to 1 over x squared. So here they're saying 1 over x squared is greater than 1 over y squared. So here, if like x is 2, well, let's say, like, this time, let's say x is 1,000 and y is 2, -2. Well, then this is definitely not true. 1 divided by 1,000,000 is less than 1 divided by 4. Definitely the correct answer here is C. Definitely, I can also, yeah, I had to use like a yeah, definitely, yeah. Yeah, once you get to the final couple questions, you have to be ready to use like all sorts of different strategies. I tried plugging in some numbers, I ran into some issues, so I switched, right? I just started doing the algebra instead. And here, for this particular problem, the algebra turns out to be the correct way to handle it. You take this inequality, you solve, you get x is greater than y. Yeah, definitely, if x is a positive number and y is a negative number, x is always greater than y. Okay, triangles. We have a triangle. ABC, PQR. Given the side lengths are in centimeters, the area of ABC is 30 square centimeters. What is the area of PQR? I actually have no idea how to solve this. Let's see. Let me think. How can I solve this? So they're saying that the area here is 30. And we have x and y. Do they want me to use the law of cosines, maybe? I'm not... let's see. I should just start trying to solve it, right? Yeah, so definitely this is the type of problem, even for me, it's going to take like 3 to 5 minutes. Yeah, hopefully, I mean, definitely I'm going to have an extra 10 minutes at the end of the test. Let's see if I can solve it. So here, like, another great strategy for this type of question, if you're running out of time, right? Just guess. So they're telling me that this is 30. Let's see. My gut says that this is less than 30. My gut says that the answer is 25. Just blind guess. I'm looking at the two triangles. I think this one's smaller than that one. I'm not sure. I might be totally wrong. But in my mind, just in first glance, this seems smaller than this one. I think 25 sounds very reasonable. Okay, let's try the law of cosines. Even if so I can use the law of cosines to like get some I can't even get any numbers. I can like, let's see, what's a quick way to calculate the area of this triangle? So like we have this base, I could calculate like this height, I could calculate this height. Even if I calculate this height, I don't even know the length of this base. But I think the only thing I can do is the law of cosines here. Yeah, so I'm looking at this problem. The only thing that I can do in a sensible way to make any progress at all is the law of cosines. And here, a lot of the times the ACT just tells you what the law of cosines is. Maybe they tell you what the law of cosines is in the next one. So this is the law. Yeah, so they tell you the law of cosines right here. Is this going to be useful? I guess we'll just see, right? Yeah, let's see if it turns out to be useful or not. So the law of cosines is this. They straight up tell it to you. So if you have a triangle, and you know two sides of the triangle, the angle in between, you can calculate the third side by using this equation. C squared is equal to a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c. So in this particular example, you can, let's call this side c, right? Yeah, so here c squared is going to be equal to x squared plus y squared minus 2xy cosine 70. Okay. And then let's call this d. So d is going to be equal to, d squared is going to be equal to x squared plus y squared minus xy cosine 110. Is that helpful? Yeah, so this is the question. What do I do with this information that I have now? Honestly, I'm not sure. Let me think for a little bit more. What else can I solve in this problem? So we have the triangles, the length, or side lengths are in centimeters. What is the area? Is there any like information that I'm missing? Wow, this is definitely one of the hardest questions I've seen in the ACT. We have some angle C, we have some angle A. This is 90. I guess one thing that we could try is like, I'm gonna try this. What if I just start plugging in some numbers? What if I just start testing some numbers for x and y? What is gonna happen there? So what I could do is just like, let's say x is 10 and y is 12. What happens if that is true? Well, if that's true, well, c would be equal to what? 10 squared plus 12 squared. And then here, you definitely need to make sure that you're in degrees. Make sure yeah, that was a close one. Make sure you're in degrees. And minus 2 times 120 cosine 70. Okay, so if this is 10 and this is 12, then this is going to be 161? That doesn't sound right. Oh, it's going to be square root of 161. Okay. So this is going to also be like 12.72. What do I do with that information? Well, okay. If that's the case, okay, so definitely I'd be really interested to see the actual solution. So if this is 12.724, I can now use the law of sines to like, let's get this angle here, right? So what is this angle? So I can do sine A divided by 12 equals sine 70 divided by 12.724589. So I can, if this is 10 and 12, so this is like a huge if, right? Yeah, so I'm just like plugging in some numbers, seeing what happens. So if this is 12 and this is 10, then this is going to be 12.72 according to the law of cosines. If all that stuff is true, then I can also calculate this angle using the law of sines. Okay, so here we're going to get sine 70 times 12 divided by the answer that we just got, right? And then I can do the inverse sine of this one to get this angle. Why did I do that? It's because I want to calculate this height. So if once I have this angle, I can use trigonometry to calculate the height. So here, the height is going to be, so sine this angle is going to be equal to h divided by x. So I can do sine of that angle times 10 to calculate a hypothetical h. So here, okay, so this is the h. So if this is 10 and this is 12 and this is 70, what is the area of the triangle? It's going to be that number times 12.72458902 divided by 2. So the area here would be 56, which doesn't match this one, right? But here, I'm going to try to make it quick. I'm going to do the exact same thing for this triangle over here. Let's pretend that this is 10 and this is 12. What happens in this triangle? So in this triangle, d would be equal to 10 squared plus 12 squared. Let's write that down. Yeah, so here, before I move on, yeah, so here, if this is 10 and this is 12 and this is 70, the area would be 56.381557. Okay. And then this one, if 10 squared, 12 squared, minus 2 times 120 cosine 1 time. So this time, this one is going to be the square root of this number. This is 18. And then, so we can do the same thing, right? So we do the exact same thing as before. So sine 70 times 12 divided by the answer that we just got, 18 something. So this, and then take the inverse sine of that to find the angle. Okay, so this would be 38 degrees approximately. And then now we can calculate the height. So again, the height is going to be, height divided by x is going to be sine of this. So sine of this times 10 is the height. Okay, so then now I can do this times 18.05788192. Divide that by 2 to get the area of the triangle. I'm getting 56. Okay, I'm going to go with J. So here, I just plugged in some numbers just to see what would happen. And what I found was that, like, if it's 10 and 12 and 70 degrees, the area of this triangle is actually exactly the same as the area of this triangle. So definitely x and y are not 12, but I'm just saying, like, if x and y were 12, then I did the math, the area of the two triangles are the same. So I think the natural assumption here is that the area is the same. Like, that's definitely not a proof. Like, that I didn't actually solve the problem. I just, like, tested a couple of scenarios, and I found that in a certain scenario where x is 10 and y is 12, the areas are the same. So I'm just going to assume that the area is always the same. Like, definitely if I had more time, I could test, like, more numbers. Like, maybe if I tested, like, 3 additional sets of numbers, and every single time the area ends up being the same, then I can be, like, relatively confident that I'm just looking for 30. Definitely, we're going to Google this one in a bit. I'm pretty sure that's the correct answer, but not a super elegant solution here. but let's keep moving. Triangle ABC is shown in the figure below. The measure angle A is 40 degrees, AB is 18 degrees centimeters, and AC is 12 centimeters, which is the following is the length in centimeters of BC. So this is a little bit more straightforward. Yeah, so this is just the law of cosines. They're asking for BC. Yeah, so here, you can just directly, we did this, I showed you this a couple times. Hopefully it'll be a little bit more clear this time, right? So let's just call this C. So we can use this equation, they gave it to us. So c squared is equal to 18 squared plus 12 squared minus 2 times 18 times 12 cosine 40 degrees. And here, you don't even need to plug it into the calculator, right? Yeah, you just need to, like, they just want you to plug it into the equation and take the square root of both sides. So here, again, don't be intimidated, right? Yeah, they want you to, this is the law of cosines. In a triangle, if you have two sides and the angle in between, you can solve for the third side. You can do that by using this equation. So you go ahead and set up the equation, you plug in 18, you plug in 12, you plug in 40 degrees, you're already at the answer. You just take the square root of both sides and it's E. It definitely, I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's just, this is the equation, you plug in the numbers into the equation, answer's E. Definitely. Why is this true? Honestly, I don't even know why this is true. Honestly, like for me, the correct answer is like some dude like back in like 600 AD in like India solved this. Yeah, definitely a lot of the trigonometry actually comes from India. What is the sum of the first 4 terms of the arithmetic sequence where the 6th term is 8 and the 10th term is 13? Yeah, so an arithmetic sequence is one where you add the same number over and over. Yeah, so let's just make a table, right? So they're saying that the 6th term is 8 and the 10th term is 13. Okay, so we're going to add some number x at each step, right? We're going to add x, add x, add x, add x. So 8 plus 4x equals 13. That means 4x is equal to 5, x is equal to 5 over 4. Okay, so here, yeah, we just need to do 8 minus, this is 1.25, 8 minus 1.25, this number is 6.75, and then let's just calculate all of them, right? It definitely, this problem is a huge hassle as well, but it's okay, we can handle it. You know, this number is going to be 5.5, this number is 4.25, this number is 3, this number is 1.75. And let's go ahead and add these numbers up. And that's what they're asking for, right? They want us to add up the first 4 numbers. 1.75 plus 3 plus 4.25 plus 5.5. I'm getting 14.5. Yeah, definitely not the most elegant solution. Yeah, definitely you could do this like algebraically, but for me, yeah, again, like when you get to these like really complex questions with like very roundabout instructions, definitely you can solve it algebraically, but this is the exact type of situation where I'm gonna make a mistake. So because I know that if I try to do this algebraically, I'm not gonna be sure if I got the correct answer or not. So here, I'm just gonna do it like in a very elementary way, right? I'm gonna make a chart, I fill in the numbers, and then I add up the first 4 numbers. I would say this is, for me anyway, this is a more straightforward way that it's going to help me avoid mistakes. Hopefully that's the correct answer. We'll check in a moment. Almost done. In the equation x squared plus mx plus n equals 0, m and n are integers. The only possible value of x is negative 3. What is the value of m? What? Okay, so here, this one's a very interesting problem. So we have this x squared plus mx plus n, and they're saying that the solution for x is negative 3. What does that mean? Well, that must mean that this is factorable, and that this is the solution, right? So hopefully you recognize that if you have this, that means that the solution is negative 3, right? Well, they're saying that we have this parabola, and the only solution is negative 3. That must mean that this is equal to this. And what is the value of m? Now we can FOIL this. We get x squared plus 6x plus 9. M is 6. Yeah, so definitely, you know, this is also a very common setup in the math standardized test, right? So definitely in school, you started here and then you would factor it to get the answer is -3, right? But here they tell you that the answer is -3, and you should recognize that if we have a parabola and the answer is -3, this must be true. Well, if this is true, then this is true. Well, if this is true, then m is definitely 6. It's definitely like a really weird way of thinking about math that the ACT kind of likes to emphasize for whatever reason. I mean, it is just like, also, it is a good exercise. It's just like doing math backwards. Being able to do math backwards is a pretty useful skill. Yeah, so again, like normally, yeah, this part makes sense, right? You have this, you factor it, answer's -3. But they also want you to recognize that if the answer is -3, then this must be true. Then this must also be true. Well, then m is 6. It's the same thing, but backwards. The solution to the set of which of the following equations is the set of real numbers that are 5 units from -3? Yeah, definitely. Here's another one where, like, yes, you can solve it algebraically, but here I'm just going to work backwards from the answers, right? So here, what are 5 units away from -3? So if we have -3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. So we're looking for 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is -4, -5, -6, -7, -8. So we're looking for -8 and 2, right? So here I'm just going to start plugging in -8 and 2 and see what happens. 2 definitely works here. -8 also works here. Correct answer is F. Right? Yeah, so definitely from the description, we're looking for numbers that are 5 units away from -3. We're definitely talking about -8 and 2. And here, the first equation definitely works. 2 plus 3 is 5, absolute value of 5 is absolutely 5. -8 plus 3 is -5, absolute value of -5 is 5. I am done. I think at this point, like, I see no reason to test the other numbers, the other equations. Let's see how I did. I'm really curious now. Yeah, this was really tough. This was really tough. FCJE, KCJE, GCF. It's free. It's free, bro. It's absolutely not free. That's. I'm being sarcastic here. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be sarcastic. What do I even say? Yeah, like, definitely. Yeah, these questions are hard for sure, right? Like, if you were in a position to get all these questions correct, like, why would you even be in my class, right? But here, like, just know, like, hopefully you'll have time to at least read the questions, right? And hopefully you can start seeing why, like, it's important to, like, not be intimidated by these types of questions, right? You can get this, you can do this. Yeah, like, nail this one. Yes, you work backwards with the answers, make sure you understand the percentages. Yeah, this stuff, definitely 51, there's a lot of steps, right? But honestly, 51 is very similar to, like, question 5. It's just they just want you to, like, there's just like 10 extra steps, right? It's the same concept. They just want you to do more, just more and more. You definitely know that which of the following is an expression of P in terms of I, N, and A. This is a fancy way of saying solve for P. And hopefully you just recognize immediately, if I divide by the stuff in the parentheses, I've immediately solved for P. This one, I tried working backwards from the answers and just plugging in numbers, and it didn't work. I actually had to, like, use the algebra to solve this one. I was still working backwards from the answers, though. This one, 56. Yeah, I'm like, I want to see the actual. Okay, let me think. There must be some, like, triangle rule that I'm spacing out on right now. I don't know. I'm just gonna Google it. I definitely, like, I'm sure if I, like, thought about it for 20 minutes, I would see the solution, but, like, we don't have 20 minutes. We have 3 minutes. What was it? 56. Let's ask Reddit. This question's even too hard for Reddit. They just send you a video. Really unfortunate. Okay, I guess we have to watch the video. No, this is not even the correct problem. This is a really unfortunate situation.
angle's 830 square centimeters to be our height here is not specific.
Oh, okay. There's a way easier solution. I see it. It's the law of sines. Oh my god. Okay, so here, okay, let me show it to you. So imagine this line over here, where it goes from this point to make a right angle with this side over here. Let's call this H. So this side is definitely going to be, so definitely you need to know your trig, right? Yes, if you don't know your trig, it's sine theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. Yeah, this is SOHCAHTOA, right? Cosine theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse, tangent theta. This, you definitely need to know this for the AZT. Opposite over adjacent, right? So if you have a right triangle, yeah, let's call this angle theta. You can call it x, you can call it whatever you want. This is the right angle over here. This is the adjacent side. This is the opposite side. This is the hypotenuse, right? Obviously, you know the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the long side. The opposite side is the side that's opposite of the angle. That's why it's called the opposite side. Adjacent is a fancy word for next to. Yeah, so this is the side that's next to the angle. Well, you know, the hypotenuse is also next to the angle, right? But the hypotenuse is the hypotenuse. When I say adjacent, I mean the one that's not the hypotenuse. And then here, yeah, sine theta is this, cosine theta is this, yeah, tangent theta is this, SOHCAHTOA. Yes, you've seen this before. Yeah, so here, the actual solution to this problem is to recognize that if you draw this diagonal line over here, this is sine 70 degrees is going to be equal to h over y. Okay, so h is actually equal to, so, and then h, if you do a little bit of algebra, h is equal to y sine 70 degrees. Okay, and then so the area of this triangle is going to be x times y sine 70 over 2. Yeah, because this is the height, this is the base, right? And then if we do a similar thing for this triangle over here, let's do the exact same thing over here, right? So here the angle's gonna be, the picture's gonna be a little weird, but it's fine. So the right angle would be like somewhere around here. Let's call this h again. So this one is also, the angle here is 110. No, the actual angle is like over here. Can I, is that okay? Yeah, I think that's fine. That's actually fine. This question is a lot harder than I expected. Okay, so if I draw the height of the triangle on the right, actually the picture becomes extremely weird because the height is outside the triangle, but that's fine. So this is 90 degrees. So here, if you imagine this triangle over here, right, the triangle that's outside of the triangle, this angle over here becomes 70 degrees as well. Yeah, so here, yeah, so this is 110, this adds up to 180, this is 70, right? So here, the h is actually, the equation for h is the same. Yeah, sine 70 equals h divided by y. So here, once you see that, you can recognize that the area is going to be the same because the x is definitely the same. And then the height also ends up being the same for both triangles because if you have 110 here, this angle becomes 70. The height is still sine 70y. Okay, that's the solution. I don't even know if that's helpful, right? That solution is still ridiculously difficult. Honestly, I still prefer my solution. Just start plugging in numbers and see what happens. Rough. That's rough. That's really rough. Any questions? Yeah, definitely. A lot of these questions were very, very difficult, right? And hopefully you can see very clearly now. Like you should be working on the first 30 questions first, right? If you struggle with any of the first 30 questions, like you're not ready for this stuff. You definitely figure out the first stuff first, and then figure out the hard stuff later. But like even for the hard stuff, like definitely if you have time, if you're quick with the calculator, you're just systematic. You definitely where you work back. The strategies remain the same. Read the questions carefully, work backwards from the answers, draw some pictures, plug in some numbers, use your calculator, try to figure out what's going on, but obviously it's much harder than before, right? And definitely work through the practice tests. Definitely, it's 2023, right? You can like look up whatever answer that you need on YouTube if you really need it, ask Reddit, do whatever you need to do. Honestly, like at a certain point, you definitely, just getting used to the format, working on this stuff together is very helpful, right? Yeah, that'll help you get to like a 25, 26, 27. But if your goal is like a 33, right? At that point, you just need to realize like how badly do you want that 33? Like at that point, you just need to figure out what do I need to get that 33? What do I need to do to get there? It's probably like, take the practice test, mark your answers, analyze the questions that you got wrong, make sure that stuff makes sense, practice the proper techniques, the algebra, the calculator, guess and check, visualization, trigonometry, statistics, whatever you need to learn, right? And then if you still get stuck, well, then come back tomorrow. Ask me like specifically what you need help on, right? I'll try to help you. And then even after this week is over, hopefully you can just like Google this stuff on Reddit or YouTube, right? This is just it's 2023. These are Ask ChatGPT, right? You have all these different resources. Absolutely be ready to use all of them, right? Excellent. You guys are working hard. I appreciate you guys. Definitely. I hope. Wow, I would say this is probably the hardest 10 questions I've ever seen out of the ACT. I was really, really shocked by this one. Thankfully we're still able to get all the questions correct. Hopefully I'm making sense. Hopefully, don't be. I would say the other important thing is like, don't give up, right? The one thing that you should focus on is don't give up. Don't fall into despair. Obviously the questions are hard. Just take comfort in the fact knowing that these questions are hard for everyone. It's just the harder you try, the better the chance that you get a high score, right? It is what it is. Tomorrow we'll take a look at the hardest questions from the science test. We're going to meet 2 more times. Tomorrow's Thursday, next day's Friday, and then we're done, right? Hopefully this has been helpful. Keep practicing. Definitely bookmark this page. It'd be nice to like work longer, right? But this is a 1-week course. I'll try my best. Hopefully we'll continue to see some big improvements. See you tomorrow.